Okay, so tonight's homework's pretty short, and I'm going to try and bust it out before the lunch bell rings because I'm making it a little bit later than I normally do. So tonight we're talking about plotline and short story elements, and at the end of tonight's tutorial we'll be reminding ourselves of the traditional plotline and what you'll be asked to do for the written portion of the suspense unit, as well as how to write like Poe for this creative narrative. So we're doing this suspense unit, and there's two different proficiencies that are happening within it. There's the literature proficiency, which we've been covering in concepts 1 through 5, and then now we're going to be talking about the written component and analyzing Poe's writing and writing our own scary story. So you're going to be asked to get a C in the written component to analyze an excerpt from The Telltale Heart. You're going to be marking it up, highlighting, counting words, etc., and really trying to understand his writing style so that you can mimic it later. You're going to also need to show the planning of your story. You need to have statements on what your story's beginning, middle, and end should look like, as well as a developed plot line showing all the parts of the story. So that is to get a C. To get a B, you're going to have to complete the story. You're going to have to write it. I'm going to be focusing or looking at word choice, how you develop tone and mood in the story, and use some dialogue to help build suspense and to write like Poe. To get an A, you're going to need to show all of the above, and then also really use your punctuation on your dialogue correctly, have clear organization pattern that moves the reader through the story, and possibly even use some figurative language. So, plotline. First, we have the exposition. So this is going to be the start of your story that introduces the characters, settings, potential conflict, etc. And by the way, we already have talked about different types of conflicts in the night concept that we did towards the end of the story. So if you need a review on types of conflict, you can go back and look there. Then you have rising action. So this makes up the bulk of the storyline, where conflicts happen, the protagonist is tested, until you come to the climax. And that's going to be the most important and intense part of the story, where the conflict is at its worst and needs to be resolved in some way. So then you hit falling actions. This is where the events are going to lead to the story's end as the problem is fixed at some point. The resolution is where the problems are potentially solved. Another word to use here is denouement, but they don't necessarily teach that much. So at this point, the end of the story is going to be your resolution. So, to write like Poe, you need to think about your word choice. He wrote about basic human fears. So what fear does your story contain? Did you use a small amount of dialogue? What point of view is your story going to be written from? What's the theme of your story? What am I supposed to get from reading it? And then finally, did you use any figurative meaning or devices? So things like simile, metaphor, onomatopoeia, hyperbole, allusion, symbolism, as well as your connotation and word choice. Whew, okay, looks like I got that done before lunch was over. So, you're now finished. Don't forget to fill out the WISC, and hopefully you like this short and sweet homework, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.